Hi YouTube, look at this for a really weird place to start for a sculpt. I bought this little tiny owl at a car boot sale last season and it cost me about £1 I think. But I just really like the dome from it. I like the owl as well, but I kind of figured he could actually survive without the dome, just as a display piece. So I've been looking at this glass dome ever since and it's been making me think you need to make that Mars Attacks alien. So this is my usual way of starting a sculpt, just with a wooden block, drill a couple of holes in the wooden block, and I've got this 2mm aluminium wire which goes into the holes, and then I twist it up to make an armature. In this case I've also made some feet and then screwed those into the wooden block as well, just to make it extra strong. But you can see the aluminium wire just twisted up. I've got these unusually shaped arms with dips in, which I'll show you in a second, but here you can see where it goes down into the wood where the ankles are. That is a 2mm hole, just with the 2mm wire going straight in, glued in, and then it's all just twisted up. An extra twisted bit around the bottom part of the leg just to make it even stronger. You can see those two little gaps where the arms are. That's where the dome's going to go over the top like that. You can see the neck support where I'll attach the head at the top there. So that's all looking ready to go. My sculpting material, as usual, is MILLIPUT. If you haven't used MILLIPUT before, it's a two-part putty. You mix the two parts together in equal amounts and it sets rock hard in about 4 hours. So here you can see I've just made the main body shape. I've actually pushed the dome into the top of this to give me that sort of circular ridge around the top, and then just a little bit for where the kind of shoulders are going to go. There you go. You can see the dome just slots onto the top nicely. I've got to be careful with this because I don't want the glass dome to kind of fall off at this point and smash. That would be pretty devastating. Right, with a lot of my sculpts recently, I've left the head until right at the very end. With this guy, because the brain part at the top of the head is really complicated, I wanted to get that done and out of the way. So all of these wiggly shapes in the brain area were all done by pushing a small screwdriver down into the MILLIPUT while it was soft. And it just gives a nice rounded edge. It looks a little bit like kind of intestines as well. It would be good for doing those. You can see there's obviously a lot more to do with the front of the face, but I've got the main eyebrow ridges and the kind of top of the nose. The mouth is very basic at this stage, really is just a gap, but all of the teeth and everything will be done separately. I've left the neck so it's not joined on yet, so the wire can still be kind of bent. So if I need to adjust the angle of the head under the dome, I still can at this stage. Right, this is with the head sculpt much more finished. I've added a lot more detail to it. You can see I did a couple of balls for the eyes and stuck those in with super glue. I've added a lot more kind of ridges on the front of the face. I've added the rows of teeth and I've added these two kind of flaps at the sides of the head. The glass dome is looking a bit misty at this stage, and that's just because the MILLIPUT sort of fingerprints have got on it. So I'll clean that all off at the end and make it all nice and kind of new and shiny looking again. You can see I've added more MILLIPUT inside here to make a kind of a bigger ridge, and the glass goes onto that much nicer now. Next I wanted to make some chest plates, and the way I've done that is just to roll out some MILLIPUT on a piece of aluminium foil, and then you can cut the shape and kind of just smooth it to round it off a little bit. But this is the front and the back chest plate. What I'll do is I'll wait until these have kind of hardened a little bit and then I'll put them on. This is also the start of his little ray gun. So you can see I just made a very basic shape and just wedged a bit of wire in the sort of front and, for the main handle. Okay, I've put the main chest plates on like this and I've stuck them to the body. I had to be careful at the top because obviously the glass dome, I didn't want them to stick to the glass dome. So what I did was I rubbed some flour around the top edge of them, put the glass dome on and then pushed it onto the glass dome. So it was a nice snug fit, and then just let the MILLIPUT dry. Once the MILLIPUT was dry, I could put the glass dome back in and check it was all okay. The little gun, I've just added some more to the handle and some more to the front of the gun, just to give the rough sort of shape. And I've also made this kind of backpack for him with these 2 cylinders. That took a bit of work, so it's basically just rolling some Milliput and then just using sandpaper to kind of smooth it all down. I've been keeping my glass dome at the side of my cabinet here so it's a bit safer. So you can see that if I just put this over his head, it now fits nice and snugly into that, and it's not going to fall off as easily. I'm sort of considering whether to glue it on at the end or just leave it loose. Next I added the arms, which I was able to position under the shoulders, and I've just basically did them like, you know, a couple of cylinders and then added the ridges into them. I've added all this detail to the front chest piece as well, with a little kind of tube that goes in. But yeah, you can see the arms are pretty basic. I'll add a little bit more to them to kind of smooth them in a bit, but this gives the main shape. You can see with the hands I've kept them very basic at this stage, and I'll add fingers and things to them later. The backpack is now positioned on as well, and I added a couple of pegs at the back to fit the backpack too. Otherwise I think if I'd have just glued it on it would probably just fall off quite easily. You can see with the little gun my new favourite technique is to drill a couple of holes and then bend some of this soft aluminium wire to form these little bars. You can see I'll position it in his hand here and then I'll add the fingers over the top later. Right, I normally just position my sculpts in front of my cabinet to show you guys while I'm videoing, but in this case I'll show you what's been happening, all the chaos that's going on in the background of this sculpt. You can see on this particular one I needed to strap him to a chair just with cable ties to keep him really firm. This is while I make the legs, because otherwise the legs could be quite spindly, you know, while the Milliput is still soft. They can bend a little bit, and because the top part of him is quite heavy now, he could bend over. So this keeps him nice and firm while the Milliput sets for his legs. Once it's set, it'll be all nice and strong and firm. It's just while the Milliput is soft, you've got to be a bit careful. You can see all my kind of drills and Milliput and super glue and aluminium foil and all bits of, you know, sculpting materials and things in the background. Here you can see the hand where I've started putting the aluminium wires on that are going to be the middle parts of the fingers, and then I add Milliput over the top of those. Obviously a tiny hole has to be drilled for each finger. If you look at the other hand, it's a bit more obvious where I've drilled the holes, put the thumb in, put the 4 fingers in, just bent them slightly, and then again the Milliput will go over the top and I can refine it afterwards. One of the great things with Milliput is that after it's hardened you can sand it down. So I did quite a bit of sanding on the main body just to make it smoother and just a better shape overall. He was a little bit chubby to start with. Right, again, it's amazing how much just a little bit of detailing can do. So you can see on the chest piece here, just adding these extra little bits here and there has made all the difference. And this, when it's all painted up, will just look so much better. You can see here I've drilled a couple more holes and added a couple more bits of aluminium wire. This will be where his kind of air tubes attach. You can see I've added detailing to the sides of the arms just a little bit. It's really just kind of rolled up bits of Milliput added on and kind of smoothed in. But those make such a difference to the way it looks. I've done the same thing to the top of the hips. You can see I've put the Milliput over the aluminium wire for his fingers and thumb, and that starts to look really quite cool. I can go in with a small Dremel drill and smooth a lot of this out as well if I need to. Here you can see these long kind of rolls of Milliput down the edges of the legs as well. A lot of this, you know, sometimes it looks a little bit rough. This is still soft, so I can move it slightly. But once it's all kind of set, you can paint it, and actually the paint hides quite a lot of the, you know, if you've left little holes and things in the Milliput, all smooths in. It's quite nice for you guys to see his air tanks on his back as well at this stage. You can see I've drilled a couple of holes there and added the aluminium wires for the air tube as well. So the air tube will go from the front right round to the back. At this point, because the sculpt was pretty much finished, I was getting really excited because I was really looking forward to painting him. Okay, I don't know if my camera is doing this colour justice or not, but this was a really vivid kind of turquoise colour, and I put it on and I was so pleased with how I'd matched the colour to the original. You'll see later on, because when you first think of a Mars Attacks alien, you think of him as being green, and overall I think you do get that look, but it's not until you paint the sort of the gloves and the boots, that sort of really vivid lime kind of green, that he ends up looking more green overall. I'm using System 3 acrylic paints for all of the painting stages on this. Next, even though the chest plate areas are silver, I don't just paint them silver, I paint them black first as an undercoat, and then I dry brush the silver on top. It's a really good idea with anything that is metallic to paint it black first. It just really makes the metallic paint pop over the top. I painted the gun black, and again, I think although the gun is black, I think I might actually make it silver so it kind of matches the chest plate. Oh, I really like the idea of the gun looking sort of like it's made of metal. I really love the colour scheme of the Mars Attacks aliens. They're just amazingly colourful, really vivid, bright colours that all kind of work really well with each other. Okay, this is what I meant by the vivid green colour for the gloves and the boots. So with this, I mixed green with yellow, cadmium yellow, and then I've just added a little bit of white as well. The white makes the colour more opaque and it makes it cover better. Yellow is a very transparent colour, so if you're mixing a green and you don't add a bit of white to it, quite often you need to do a lot more layers to cover it. Okay, the tanks on the back are kind of an orangey red, so I mixed cadmium red with cadmium yellow, and I decided to paint the base the same colour because it just kind of ties it in nicely, makes the whole thing look more colourful. It's just such a great contrasting colour with the rest of the body and everything that I was really pleased with how it's looking at this stage. Okay, because the silver dry brushing is quite a quick stage to do, I got a bit carried away and ended up painting his face as well. But you can see here the silver chest plate just dry brushed over top. If you haven't done dry brushing before, you basically just take some silver on your brush, dry it on a bit of kitchen paper until there's hardly any paint left on the brush at all, and just dust it over all the higher areas. On the head here, you can see I've done various washes of colour. So I did a wash of like a sort of pale turquoise colour at the front of the head, and then a wash of like a more purpley colour as I go backwards into that sort of brain area. You can see yellow ochre colour over the main kind of neck and head area, all of the face, and then it's just going in with smaller and smaller brushes, still with kind of quite wet paint, like to add the red around the eyes, for example, the red irises and little black pupils, and then I've just done white for each tooth. I painted those individually so they kind of stand out nicely. And this is how he looks as a finished sculpt, and I'm really pleased with how he's turned out. I've cleaned the glass dome, made it really nice and kind of clear and shiny, so you can see his head much better through it now. I've also added the tubes to the front of him, you'll see in a second. But yeah, I think his eyeballs and everything really kind of pop out nicely. So he's really kind of vivid and he really stands out in my collection with all my other figures. Yeah, you can see the tubes here. I've just added those. They were just bits of wire basically that I just super glued on. Just added a little bit of black paint over the top so that they looked painted as well, tied in with the rest of it. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making this model. I'd like to thank MILLIPUT for sponsoring this channel. If you haven't tried MILLIPUT, get out and get yourself a pack or two because it is such a good modelling material. It's so strong, and just the fact that it sets at room temperature means that you don't have to cook it in an oven or anything like that. If you get a chance, check out some of the other sculpts that I've done of various creatures from other movies. Usually, if the creature is particularly weird, like kind of, gremlins and little monsters and aliens, that kind of thing, they're the ones that I like doing. But yeah, check them out if you get a chance. I'd like to thank MILLIPUT for sponsoring this channel. If you haven't tried MILLIPUT, get out and get yourself a couple of packs and give it a go because it really is such a good modelling material. Just the fact that it sets rock hard in 4 hours just at room temperature means that you don't have to cook it in an oven or anything like that. Hit subscribe to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.